If you're curious to hear a little music from our guest Carla Lucero, who we spoke to in our most recent episode, check out E4TT's annual concert of music by women and non-binary composers, Midnight Serenades, on January 25th. Welcome to For Good Measure, an interview series celebrating diverse composers and other creative artists, sponsored by a grant from the California Arts Council. I'm Nanette McGuinness, Artistic Executive Director of Ensemble for these times. In this week's episode, we continue our conversation with Pamela Z, who we spoke to in January 2021. Attention 2016 was inspired by the ways in which our focus and attention are constantly challenged in this era of endless notifications and nonstop communication feeds. Fast forward now to 2020. Have your thoughts on those concerns evolved, or have they simply grown more urgent?
The only thing I really have to say about that is that I think the biggest change has been, since that time that I wrote that piece and now, has been that we were all just in the habit of being sort of, tethered to these devices. And, you can be working really hard trying to finish composing a piece, and then all of a sudden, you hear a phone vibrating or a ringtone or a beep, like a text message beep, or like Messenger. I used to, Facebook, it goes ding. It's like a little high-pitched bell. And for years, but for a long time, I was just like, which one is that? What is that? I don't know where to even look for this one. So it's because it could be Messenger, it could be messages, like your text message program, and it could be on the phone, or it could be on your computer, it could be WhatsApp. It might be the just alert saying that you just got an email. There's all these different alerts, and we've all got them in our ears all the time. And every time we hear them, we start patting ourselves down for our devices to see who's calling me. What should I, it doesn't matter what you're in the middle of doing. People just feel like they can't not look. And so that's what I was kind of talking about with these interruptions. But I would say that the big difference between then and now is that it seemed like at that point, we were making a conscious choice to allow ourselves to be controlled by these things, and to allow ourselves to be dealing with screen time constantly. Whereas now we're in a world where it's our only connection to the outside world because we're locked down. And so we have to be constantly looking at screens and talking to people via screens because there's no other way to commute. We're not allowed to be in the same room and be face to face anymore. So it feels like we should get a pass a little bit for that. And then the other thing I was thinking about was the fact that I have a very dear friend who detests smartphones, and it took him forever to get one. He finally felt that he had to get one because he couldn't even do his work without having it. But what he really hated was seeing the entire world suddenly glued to these things, and that he would get on a BART train or a bus or any public conveyance, and every single person was staring at a little tablet or a little device of some kind, and he didn't like that. And so in defense of these devices, I used to argue to him, well, it's not like they're all doing the same thing. Some of those people are writing a letter. Some of those people are reading the New York Times. Some of those people are, sending a love note to their beloved. Some of them are drawing. Some of them are listening to music. Some of them are, reading their correspondence. So it's not like it's not like they were all doing the same thing. It's just that the device they're using to do it looks exactly the same to somebody who's looking from the outside. So I was saying, if this had been a different era, they'd all be doing something, but they'd be holding a New Yorker magazine and reading it, or a book and reading it, or they'd be having a little notepad and writing notes, and so they're doing the same thing. They're just using a different device to do it. But he said, I still don't, I know I still don't like it. It seems like there's a problem here. So, but now I realize, it's, we're now in a situation where we're all sort of like, at the, we have to be staring at these screens all day long, no matter what we're doing. Like there isn't an activity anymore that doesn't involve the screen. There used to be, and I used to jokingly say that I have to do so many things using my computer, from writing correspondence to composing music to doing my finances. Everything I do has to get done on the computer. And I used to jokingly say that if it were possible, I would probably cook on the computer, or have meals on the computer. And then fast forward to 2020, and we're all actually having Zoom lunches and Zoom dinners. And my family actually had Thanksgiving on Zoom. So there were like 8 of us, like all my siblings and my nieces, and 8 or 10 of us were on there. We were all cooking, having eggnog, sitting down together and eating, and on Zoom. Even if you are just resigned to the fact that you're doing the work on the computer, there's still different levels of how distracted you may or may not be. So, for example, I might be trying to compose music, and I'm using the computer to do that. But then I have these little, in the upper right corner of the screen, I have these little notifications, all these little text notifications telling me I've gotten an email. And it's really hard to like just continue what you're doing and not look up there and say, oh, so-and-so responded to my email. I wonder what she said, and suddenly now you've switched to another application. You're reading your email now. Or, somebody liked my post on Facebook about my concert that I have coming up. I wonder if they're going to go. Maybe I'll check and see if they said they're going to go. So sometimes you have to figure out how to turn all of that off so that you can be on this device, but be focused on the task that you're actually trying to do. You kind of have to put blinders on, as it were.
So that you can still stay in the flow of the creative work that you are doing instead of constantly being pulled out by the pings.
Yes, exactly. And then when you try to come back, you can't just start where you left off. You have to like kind of, where was I? How was I thinking here? So it really uses, if you look away for 5 minutes, it really wastes more like 15 or 20 minutes to get you back into it, whatever it was that you were doing. So.
You've been working successfully for decades, and more recently, it seems as if you've had an amazing few years. Congratulations. Still, it must be a little like grabbing a tiger by the tail. How do you pick which projects you want to take on? Have your goals or desires changed in response to all this?
It's just, it's actually kind of stressful for me right now because I have a little problem with that 2-letter word that we're all supposed to learn. And I just don't tend to say no to things. And I thought I had gotten better at it, but I'm still like agreeing to things that I don't know why I'm agreeing to them because I'm really overcommitted. And the other thing that's frustrating is that it seems like this COVID time, other people are acting like, oh, they're drumming their fingers right now. They're twiddling their thumbs because, they need things. And I even have people like sending me things like, here's something fun to do if you need something to do. I'm like, I don't need something to do. I don't really understand why people think I need something to do because I'm so overwhelmed and so overcommitted that I can't. And I think maybe the reason why it's gotten worse is partially because since we can't go out, people tended to plan way much further in advance in the old days.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wanted you to come and play a gig, or even if they wanted you to come and do an interview or do a class visit at a university or give a colloquium talk, all of those things, you would get invited to do it for the following semester. They wouldn't say, "Are you busy next week?" Because they planned their things out more, and so it was like in series like arts, performing arts series are booked like a year in advance, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I would get gigs often, where they were saying, we're thinking about 21, 22 now. And this is, and now I get people calling me all the time saying, not calling, emailing usually, sometimes Facebook messengering, saying, well, we have this series. They start with a very long intro. We're doing this new series and we're trying to feature women composers, or we're talking about people who work in this and that way. And we thought you'd be perfect for that. And we're trying to do a series of them. And so the first one on the series is next month on, Tuesday, the first Tuesday. And so, and I'm just like, I'm booked. I'm really booked. I have a lot of things. I have a lot of commissions that I'm behind on turning in. And so it's been kind of crazy because then, I find myself feeling compelled to squeeze them in. And I feel like I need to start saying, no, if you want to do this in the following season, then maybe we can talk. But right now, I'm overbooked.
Thank you for listening to For Good Measure, and a special thank you to our guest Pamela Z for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast by clicking on the subscribe button and support us by sharing it with your friends, posting about it on social media, and leaving us a rating and a review. To learn more about E4TT, our concert season online and in the Bay Area, or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit us at www.e4tt.org. This podcast is made possible in part by a grant from the California Arts Council and generous donors like you. For Good Measure is produced by Nanette McGuinness and Ensemble for These Times and designed by Brennan Stokes, with special thanks to audio engineer extraordinaire Stephanie Neumann. Remember to keep supporting equity in the arts and tune in next week for Good Measure.